Some people build a life based on routine and rules. Others build a life full of adventure, free from restrictions, and that is exactly what entrepreneur Sophie Foote did. Now based in Swanage in Dorset with her husband Simon, their two kids, and a small dog, life these days includes beach walks with a coffee, dinner parties with friends, and singing in a choir, which, if you met Sophie, this would make complete sense. But that's not where the adventure begins. In her 20s, she was living and working across Southeast Asia as a scuba diving instructor, moving from place to place and saying yes to opportunities as they came. That eventually led to a decision that most people would never make, which was to buy a beach in Indonesia online and build a diving resort from the ground up with husband Simon. They were living off grid, raising a young family, and working everything out as they went. Sophie was in the middle of it all, running the day to day of the business, managing people, solving problems, and dealing with whatever came next, which at one point included a jungle fire that she was trying to hold back with a palm leaf while her baby was asleep nearby. That experience probably tells you more about Sophie than any job title ever could. After 5 years, they sold the resort and came back to the UK, where Sophie built and sold yet another business, this time in property, using that same ability to spot what could work and then make it happen. What stands out about Sophie isn't just what she's built, it's how she's approached things. She likes a challenge. She trusts herself to figure it out, and then she's not afraid to go first, even when there isn't a clear path. Now she spends time helping other business owners step back, look at what they built, and turn it into something that actually gives them more freedom, not just to manage, with multiple income streams. Because she's done it herself more than once in the ways that most people would never attempt. As Sophie says, we could all be queens in business and still love our lives. Sophie, welcome to Stories That Sell.
Thank you. Can you go into every room I go in, but before me, and then do my introduction? Because that
I
was
would love
really
that.
nice.
I would absolutely love that. That would be such fun to be able to
Be
go
my
and do that.
announcer.
Yes, yes, I could be like the warm-up act before the actual main event. That would be great. I mean, I just, I'm absolutely in awe of you because you will absolutely just kind of go, this is what society says, but I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to get on with it. I want to buy an island. Let's have a look online and go for that.
Yeah.
I just love that attitude. Whereas most people would go, oh, I can never do something like that. And their mind would just be limited. Whereas you've got this amazing growth mindset. Where has that kind of ability to just kind of go, yeah, sure, let me just get on with it? How do I do that? Where's that come from?
That's a good question. I think I was brought up to just give everything a go. Give everything a go, get stuck into things. And I was lucky that I took this gap year to Malaysia when I was 18 to teach English, and then discovered a dive center and made friends with the people running it and fell in love with it and just went with it, just kept going with it. Because I always think that, what is failure? Like, what is the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is I need to go home and live with my parents. And that's not bad. So,
Oh,
I don't really have a big issue in like what people think or if people might judge me for it. I think everyone should just go and live their happiest lives and just, yeah, have a go at things.
I love that. Most people wouldn't do these kind of things because they'll be, it really is fear. It's fear of
Mhm.
that. Do you get scared of things or do you just kind of go, it what will be will be?
Yeah, I just give it a go. I mean, I always have a plan. So when we decided to do the business in Indonesia, we went and visited the beach. And then we spent probably a month figuring it out, putting a business plan in place, doing the market research. I knew it was the best place in the world for diving. So there's your demand. We costed up the whole thing. We were visiting suppliers. We got legal advice. So there it isn't a just fuck it, let's do it, if I'm allowed to swear, even
Of
though I
course.
do have that kind of attitude and enthusiasm for things. But I will weigh things up and think, is this worth my time? Let's not just have a go and then figure out that it wasn't. Let's put a plan in place, a 5-year strategy. Let's build it to sell it. So there has
And
always been a bit of a plan going on.
yeah.
But then it's right, let's go for it. Let's go for it.
And just for people that have maybe not heard the story of the fact that you brought an island online or a beach, which then came attached to an island that,
Yeah.
but it didn't have anything on it. It was a remote island. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
The island had a small village and maybe two or three small resorts, quite far apart from each other. So yeah, very
Uh,
off the beaten track.
yeah, it sounds it. How do you go about kind of going, okay, right, we're gonna build here, we're gonna develop a business here, I'm gonna bring staff in. How? Just how do you kind of even I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. In your kind of planning,
Mm.
what was it like? What were the first steps you took to kind of getting to a point where you think, okay, I could turn this into a viable business and it's all possible?
Well, we had a bit of a vision for it. So we said we can fit 8 cottages on here. Okay, if we have 8 cottages, we can have 16 guests in the high season, which will be April to September. So we know what our revenue can be from accommodation. Those guests are probably going to do at least 2 dives a day. So we could project that revenue as well. Okay, is that going to cover the cost of the resort, which would be our generators, our fuel for electricity, and our whole water system, which was basically a well that we had dug. And so we basically costed up the entire thing for the next 5 years on day one to think, is this a viable business? And diving is really profitable because you're selling air. So, for
Yeah.
example, if someone came to stay with us, we were basically a backpacker resort. Like we had bungalows, like we didn't have aircon, we had fans, we were in the middle of the jungle and on the beach. It was absolutely beautiful, but pretty basic. So we charged about 30 quid a night. And that included 3 meals. You got your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So the accommodation was dead cheap. But then the diving was 30 quid a dive. So people would do 3 dives a day. So you're already making 120 quid a day on that. Then they would rent equipment for us. So that's 150 quid a day. So now you've got that revenue times on an average 10 people at a time in the resort. And you can times that throughout the season. So it's a good profitable business. And then the costs in Indonesia were quite cheap. Supplies are cheap. Staff wages are very cheap. We paid people about 200 or 300 quid a month, which is the national wage in Indonesia. And
Mhm.
we'd always pay more than the average wage, and we would encourage our guests to leave tips and things like that. So yeah, it's about costing it all up beforehand and thinking, okay, is this profitable? And it was.
And that is just, and I think this is what's really important because when people would see that story on the outside, they would assume you just went, oh, I'm just going to sod my life in the UK. I'm going to get out of routine and I'm just going to live my whimsical life over there. But actually, what you have created is structure and a plan in a
Mm.
place full of adventure and
Yeah.
built a business out of that. And most people don't see that bit. They see the whimsical, I brought an island and we just went for
Yeah,
it.
everyone who visited us went, "Oh, you're just like on holiday every day." And we'd smile and be like, yeah. But I'd also have the staff wage list in my head, which guests are arriving tomorrow, emails I need to do, admin I need to do. Like I knew how much fuel we had on site for our boats and our generators. I knew which dive gear needed servicing. We had boat engines and compressors, and it's like any business. There's a million things to think about. We just happen to be on an Indonesian beach.
Yeah. And for most people, they just see the part where you're living on an island in the middle of Indonesia, and
Yeah,
that's just lovely. But the reality is a business still requires, and particularly a business which is customer facing, still requires all of those other things to run behind the scenes.
yeah.
At what point did you think this is this is it now? I've had my time here and I want to go home.
I think I never wanted to go home because it was literally my dream. Like as soon as I had my gap year in Malaysia and I was diving, I was absolutely hooked. And I was like, one day I'm going to have my own resort. But then my husband Simon, bless him, engineer from Devon, he moved to Indonesia having done 13 dives and then became a diving instructor and got into it. But he was responsible for keeping the whole thing running. And that was a lot for him. And he had his stressful moments. We both had our stressful moments. But if there was a leak or the generator went off or something like that, you've got you've got guests that you need to keep happy and you need to fix it straight away. And so that was a lot of pressure on him. So that was part of the decision. And then also we had our kids out there, which was amazing. But when they were sort of 1 and 2, we started thinking about their education, and we thought the best thing for them is to go and get educated in the UK, because we're living our dream. It's not like we don't want to push it on them. And we thought we've gone from nothing to a decent business now, so it's in a really good place to sell.
Yeah, I really love that. What was it like starting a business with your husband? What was it like, kind of? Because I have had family run business where my
Yeah.
both my husband and my dad have been involved in it, and it was some days were good, some days definitely weren't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we got there, we I was 26 and he was 25. So it's just this big adventure, and we immediately split everything. We immediately split it. So he was based on the island, getting the build team in, getting stuck in every day. He learned Indonesian a lot quicker than me because he was just surrounded by the guys. I spent the first couple of months on the mainland in the cheapest guest house you can find, going to McDonald's or a hotel or anywhere that had Wi-Fi to build the website and start drumming up customers. And so we had this really good separation because we can't really do things together. Like if we try and cook a meal together, we're like, no, what? Why are you doing that? Can you not touch that? So we knew we had to separate it. So he was very much operations, and I was like sales, marketing, and dive instructing. And we found that in our second business as well, the property business. We're like, you do that, I do that. We'll check in with each other. But yeah, we do work in different ways, and we have had our disagreements. But you're kind
Yeah,
of working towards the same goal, I think, in the end.
yeah, and I think that's really, really true, to be able to recognize that you can't work doing the same things together, and being open enough to be able to kind of go, right, you need to do this and you need to do that. And it was definitely maybe some of the more challenging parts I found with my husband, because technically he was supposed to be a silent partner. Um, some days he was definitely not silent, and some days I would absolutely need him to help out and step in and just get stuff done when I couldn't do stuff. So
Mm.
I totally relate to that. Have you been back to the island since you sold it?
Yeah, so we sold it in 2018 when the kids were 1 and 2, and we went back in 2024. And I couldn't believe like it had been, what is that, 6 years? Yeah. Because the kids were then 8 and 9 or 7 and 8. And so they were ready. They were ready to do that long haul flight. And they'd seen the videos, they'd seen the pictures, they know they were born there. There's lots of pictures here of like sunsets on the boat and underwater pictures and stuff. So they know the whole story. And it was amazing going back. We flew in and our driver was there to pick us up. He's like, hello, because they'd arranged it and they still used him. Hello. And our boat captain's daughter met us at the airport because we'd been sponsoring her through tourism college. And she came with like a sash for each one of us. It was really sweet. And then we got to the boat and all the boat guys were there, and it was just like a celebration. And then we walked through the village on the island, and it was like going back in time because we were like, oh, they're the guys that built the resort, and she was our first nanny, and she was our first cook, and it was so lovely to see everyone. And our
Mm,
friend was managing it because we had brought in managers every summer to help us, and the current owners, they didn't have an easy time of it because they bought the resort, and then 2 years later was the pandemic, so they left and they've kind of barely been back because you fall into other things. So one of them got a job in Belgium and their kids started getting older and got into school. And so they've been back and forth to oversee it. But our friend has been managing it. So it's really fun to go back and see him and see what had happened over the pandemic, really. It was amazing.
yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like to, because in some ways you think, well, an island, perfect. We're away from everything in the middle of a pandemic, but
Mm.
it's still a business at the end of the day. It still needs income.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we'd been there during the pandemic, we might have just stayed and just gone fishing a lot because we'd built like such good links with the community. Like we started an NGO, we were teaching English at the school, we employed half the village at one point. But because they'd only been there a year or so, I don't think they'd felt as kind of dug in. So they just left and asked one of the staff to look after it and then came back 2 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine kind of buying a business and then being in that kind of place. I
Mm.
mean, I started my first business about 15 months before the pandemic, so I
Yeah,
know that it's
yeah,
kind of it was such an odd time.
yeah.
But you were in property by this point when it kind of came into the pandemic, and you kind of gone into, is that correct? You were doing property investment by the time of the pandemic, or was that after?
Well, we basically got back and I said to Simon, right, we've done my dream. What's your dream? And he said, air traffic control.
This.
So I was like, right, okay. So he applied for it and less than 1% of people get in and he got in. And then we moved to Spain for a bit so he could train there. I ended up getting bored and applying as well, and I got in. So we had about a year of learning to be air traffic controllers, and then the pandemic happened and they fired all of us. And then I got a job, and that didn't go very well. I got a marketing and sales job, and the guy I worked for was horrific. So I thought I need my own business again. So I think I started the property business 2022 and then
Okay.
built it from there.
Air traffic control, that's such an interesting role, but in a way, it has so many correlations to being a business owner, right? Because you are basically an air traffic controller when you are a business owner, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. It's really fascinating.
Was it for Simon? Was that the dream that he'd always imagined it to be when he was in the job?
He loves aviation. So yeah, he absolutely loved it.
Bet he was absolutely gutted when you all
Yeah,
got let go.
yeah, they let go of 122 trainees.
Would he go back to it, do you think?
Well, we've reflected on it since, and it's quite a fun job. It's very, very well paid, but it's all shift work. And we really like the life we've built where we can take the kids to school and take them to the beach after school, and we wouldn't be able to do any of that.
No. Well, when you came back and thought, I really want to like start my own business again, what drew you to property? What was it about property? Because obviously you built a community. Was it
Mm.
the same sort of feeling that made you think I actually want property as part of my business?
It was just the business model. I just thought I need to get out of this job. I need a business model that I can start and scale quickly, and that looks good. That was it. I just went for it.
I love it. And you had what? I mean, you've just sold the business recently, haven't you? So now you're kind of in this unique position where you're kind of being able to look at how you can best help other people
Mm.
sort out their passions in life and live their best lives and be able to do things like take the kids to the beach after school and all of those kind of things, which sometimes in reality, the life of an entrepreneur, it starts out with this dream of I'm going to have all the freedom in the world, but
Yeah.
actually it doesn't happen. You end up being a slave to your business.
Yeah, yeah, you can work all the time. And especially in the first few years of business, you have to work all the time to get it to a decent place. And you have to learn all the things and fail and go through that horrible cash flow roller coaster. Yeah, it can be very, very difficult. But
Yeah,
now I'm going to be helping other people scale their businesses because I've realized that's what my sort of zone of genius is. Like that's what I've been good at. Start a business with a big strategy in mind, work to that strategy, take yourself out of the business, sell it.
yeah. And what I love is the fact that you started the property business from literally zero.
Yeah,
There wasn't like some people have massive investments from things, but you didn't. You just went,
yeah,
I need a different career path because I do
yeah,
not like this one.
yeah.
And it is possible to do that. And I think so many, particularly at the moment, and there's a lot of mindset around how business online is hard, AI is changing the world, we have to be doing all of these things differently now. And there's a lot of people that are like just sitting there kind of in paralysis going,
Yeah.
well, I can't. I need more investment in order to grow my business. And sometimes that's not always the case though, is it?
I think you just need a good plan. I think a lot of people start a business with something they're really good at or something they're passionate about, and they get the hang of it and they get a place where they can get customers, they know how to get leads, they don't need to know what a funnel is anymore. They've got a bit of a social media strategy, kind of, so they know they can get clients, but they haven't got this long-term plan of what, how am I going to exit this? What is the plan? People are telling me to scale, but I don't really know why. Okay, I can make more money. So I think it's just important to have that plan because otherwise you don't know. Should I be using more AI? Should I be showing up live to be a personal brand? Should I go to events? What should I be doing? If you've got your plan to scale, then you just do what it says. Just do what it says.
It's
And
simple,
if
right?
you're really good at what you do, you'll be able to help people with that because you'll be able to explain, if you do this with me, I can help you so much and I can get you there. And I think that's the kind of key to doing it.
With the property business, when you started that thinking, I just need to do my own business again, did
Mm.
you start that with the aim to sell it?
Yes. So I could
Be-
see I could see it as a model. I looked at it as a 5 year thing. I like doing things in 5 years. Because you can you're nearly there, you can touch it. And so I thought, okay, if I can get 30 properties in 5 years, that will be X revenue, X profit. At this point, I'll need this staff member, and I just built it based on that plan.
I, that is such a, I love that. And I mean, just for the listeners, plans don't always go to plan. You've demonstrated that throughout having brought an island and having to
Yeah.
deal with things like fires and things
Yeah.
like that, which, you were reliant on a boat as your main mode of transport, which you don't have fire engine just sitting around the corner waiting to
Mm.
help you. You have to figure out the solution to that and just, use your own skill set and ask for help. I think what is interesting though, because when I opened my first business, the cafe, bar, and bakery, my aim was always to franchise that, make it bigger. Unfortunately, the pandemic had other ideas and the cost of living crisis hit. And it wasn't going to be able to be scalable because it was basically just about kind of breaking even. And I had to make that choice to close it. When I started this business, I started it with a very different mindset of I will eventually sell this business,
Mm.
which I never would imagine doing that with my first business because I was so emotionally attached to it. It was named after
Mm.
my grandmother. So I think a lot of people do start businesses and often their first business without that thought of, I will sell this.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really, when you start thinking about it in a way of, I'm actually going to build this and sell it and move on to something else, you come in with a very different attitude to your business. I think there is definitely less of emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, definitely. And it allows you to take yourself out of it a bit. Otherwise, because you can work on your business all the time. So people just do work on their business all the time because you want constant clients, you want constant sales, you want constant income. But if you can then think about, okay, how can I remove myself from this business? I'm going to need someone to do that. I'm going to need someone to do that. And you can just start planning for it and building for it. It's really exciting because you could have a 6 or 7 figure exit in the next few years, and then you can have impact. You can help communities. You can do more of what makes you happy. You can do another business.
Yeah,
Options, lots of options.
so many options. I want to talk a little bit actually about, you touched on it already, about cash flow,
Mm.
because I think I was very naive around finances. Not naive in the sense of I didn't understand them. I had the business plans and everything. I did not understand cash flow, particularly, I mean, in a cafe, bar, and bakery, you need cash flow. There is,
Yeah.
you need a balance because there are literally thousands of pounds going in and out every single month. And I could not get my head around it. And I think it's not spoken about enough. We talk about balancing your books, your profits, your income,
Mm.
your revenue, all of those kind of things, which to a lot of business owners, that's complete jargon and it doesn't make any
Mm.
sense. But then there's this kind of bit where you need that elasticity in your business to be
Mm.
able to have cash flow. And I just find that I had to learn that the hard way. And honestly, I was actually phoning up my 23-year-old niece who managed a Starbucks at the time, going, how much money do you put in your float every day? Because I had
Yeah.
no idea. And
Yeah.
she was like, well, this is how much we do. And she broke it all down. I'm like, how many 50p's do I need? And it's just even
Yeah.
stuff like having the cash flow in the float,
Hmm.
no idea.
Yeah.
And it's completely different well, it's not, but it is completely different for an online business
Mm.
because it's a very different operation.
Yeah.
What would you be your advice for people that are maybe struggling with the kind of cash flow thing? Because I hear so many people say, I can't afford to invest in that right now, or I just
Mm,
can't do that because I need more income coming in.
yeah.
What would be your advice from having and with kind of like their multiple income streams in mind for people that
Mm.
are struggling with
Yeah,
this?
I think firstly, it's totally normal. Everyone has cash flow issues in the first year or two. And we're not taught it at school. No one's teaching it. So we have to figure it all out. That's why it's so difficult. Um, with my uh, with my property business, I've got a weekly cash flow spreadsheet, which I can share as a resource because it really helps you sleep at night. Because I think as you're building a business, you're constantly investing. You have to buy stuff to then sell stuff, basically. You have to invest to grow. And that can be really painful. Like I would take on a new property, spend thousands on the refurbishment, run out of money, and then know that I had bills coming out the next month and just be like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And I remember confiding in someone, being like, I don't know if I can do this. I feel like a failure, like I've got no money. And he just said, yeah, normal, totally normal. And I was like, what? And everyone I've spoken to says totally normal. Cash flow, roller coaster, normal. So you just have to get used to it. Get a good weekly cash flow spreadsheet. And yeah, speak to other businesses, like get that support network around you because it is totally normal. Build it into your business plan, have a good business forecast. And then you mentioned multiple streams of income. You know, you can do things like get an investment pot, get some money into index funds. You can use your knowledge and put it into a digital product. You can do consulting, you can write a book, you can have lots of different income streams to help and support that cash flow.
Yeah, I I absolutely love that. Do you think, I mean, cash flow totally normal as a problem in business? Should it be though?
I
Or can it
think
not be?
I think it will always happen. The cash flow roller coaster will always happen. But you can keep an eye on it more. You
Yeah.
can plan for it. And as your business grows, it can then help with that. So when I had one property, we were making 500 quid profit a month. And that was very tight. And if I didn't have that property full of tenants, my net profit margin would go down. When we had 40 properties, you know, we were bringing in much more. It didn't matter if we had a few void periods. It didn't matter if all the bills came in on the same day because we had that big cash flow buffer to deal with it. So it does get easier. I think the most painful bit is when it's tight and when you don't know what's happening. So when you get a weekly cash flow spreadsheet, you can enter all of your outgoings for the next 12 months. You can try and predict your income for the next 12 months, and that will help you sleep at night. And then if you do want to invest in something else, like you want to go on a retreat or you want to buy a course or you need a new printer or a laptop, plug it in. What does the cash flow spreadsheet say? Is it still green or has it gone red? And so those kind of tools I think can be really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. And again, I think this comes down to your ability to plan as well, like having that, knowing that plan, what that looks
Yeah.
like, and being aware of it. Before I wrap up this podcast, it would be amiss of me not to talk about the fact that you are a singer and you sing in a choir. And I've heard you sing, you've got a beautiful voice. What is your favourite style of music to sing?
Oh, that's a very good question. Um, I mean anything. Like when I go to my choir, we're called Love Soul, and there's a lot of like choreography, stepping to the side and clicking. It's just so joyful, just being in the sound, making the sound, moving your body. The two songs we're working on at the moment are Azizam by Ed Sheeran and I Will Get to You by James Morrison, which is really beautiful and quite emotional, and the harmonies are really nice. So
Mm.
all of it.
Oh, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Sophie, where can people find you that want to connect with you?
They can find me on Instagram, Sophie Coach by the Beach.
Do you know, and also I really highly encourage you to go and follow her channel because I absolutely love her content. Sophie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'll put all your links in the show notes so people can connect with you and find you afterwards. Thank you for joining me on Stories That Sell.
Thank you for having me.